always at 24mm at f2.8. This is the closest we could get to the actual focal length of the XT, but it's still a bit wider. Nonetheless, for comparison's sake, this should be good enough. You'll notice that the D850 has much better auto white balancing compared to a Realme XT, which also tends to saturate the colors more. Of course, you can go for a more saturated look on the D850 too, since it shoots raw and you can tweak it a lot. Despite having larger pixel count, the sharpness and detail on the XT are still nowhere as close to a D850, as the D850 pixels are so much bigger, which also helps it in low light, which we shall discuss later. The depth of field is also much shallower on the D850 despite what the smaller f2.8 aperture might suggest. This is a result of the much larger sensor compared to the XT, and the D850 blurring is very linear with a gradual drop off, while it's more sudden on the XT and also can go wrong at times since it is a simulated depth of field when you use the portrait mode rather than an actual physical blur. In terms of low light performance, the two are almost uncomparable. Bumping the ISO up very high also on the XT brings in high noise levels but remains pretty clean on the D850. The XT therefore is ideally used with nightscape mode, in which case the results are better and are more comparable, but still the D850 wins. Now before we wrap up, I want to share a short story that will kind of explain the thought process behind such a video. Now this was back in 2013 when I was living in Singapore and I was planning to buy the Nikon D4. My friend had a camera shop at the time, so I used to spend quite a lot of time there at the camera shop, and even help with the sales at times. So I was actually looking at the D4, and this customer, thinking that I was the shop owner or a person working there, started a conversation with me, and that involved talking about the D4. So at the time it was around 7,000 Singapore dollars, I believe, in terms of cost, and he was kind of stunned at that price, considering the fact that he hadn't seen too many cameras be that costly. So I started explaining the features and stuff, and finally when it came to the megapixel count, I told him this has 16 megapixels of resolution, and he just started laughing. So I asked him what's wrong, and then he takes out his Lumia 1020. And he says that this has 41 megapixels of resolution, so it is better than the D4, and it makes no sense that I buy the D4 at all. So the thought process is that more the megapixel count, the better the images are, or the better the image quality. Now this is something that manufacturers, brands such as Nokia, Samsung, all these had done back in the day, and they kind of brainwash customers into believing that this is actually true and this is how it works. And for a while that had stopped. The megapixel race in camera phones has stopped. Earlier it was 1 megapixel, 2, 5, 8, 12, and at 12 it had stopped, and we were at the 12, 16, 20, kind of this range for a long time. And come 2019, the megapixel race is again back. We had 48 megapixel cameras, now 64 is coming and 108 is coming. Of course you do get better detail and sharpness, but there are various other parameters that decide the image quality on a camera or a camera phone for that matter. And this video is just to explain that despite having more megapixels or pixel count, it does not necessarily mean that the image quality is better. So in this particular case, it's very difficult for a camera phone, be it the XT or any other phone for that matter, to beat something like a Nikon D850 or even a smaller level DSLR for that matter. And if you look at even our previous video where we compare the XT to the Lumia 1020, the Lumia 1020 being a flagship phone from 2013, that had a 41 megapixel sensor, but the sensor is larger, it has larger pixel size, all these factors, and that gives much better image quality even now. So don't just go by the fact that this has more megapixels and that automatically means the phone is better in terms of camera. You have to look at the other parameters as well and watch camera reviews, camera comparisons from us, from anyone out there who you trust, and then make the informed decision on which smartphone to buy in terms of camera. So that's it for this video, guys. We hope you liked it. See you again in the next one.